Good evening, everybody. Please bear with me just a moment. My camera has literally just crashed as I was just starting. Hold on one moment whilst I fix that. And still no camera. Why not? Why do I not have my camera? What has got my camera? Hang on. Sorry about this, folks. For some reason my webcam is refusing to start. And I don't know why. No, it's refusing to start. What the hell? Oh my god. Yeah, my camera is not lit up. What the heck is going on here? I'm really sorry. I don't know why my camera is not coming on, but it is not coming on. I don't have any applications that are using the camera, so I don't know why you can't see me. This is very, very strange. That's the screen. So my camera should appear right there, and it is not, and I don't know why. The heck? Okay, this is very strange. It's nothing to do with the lens. It's nothing to do with the lens cap because the camera itself is not switching on. That's the problem. It's nothing to do with the cap. It is one of those cameras that does have a cap, but for some reason it's not working. And I don't get it. And I don't seem to be able to fix it either, which is very, very annoying. Because it means we can't really do the show without the camera. And I can't see any other application that is using the camera, so I don't understand why it won't come on. But the camera itself is not lit up. I'm going to have to look in Task Manager and see if there is an application that is using the camera that shouldn't be using it. And I can't see it in Task Manager. Can't see any application that's using it. So this is very strange. No. I don't have a laptop to be able to use a camera, so but this camera was working earlier and now it's not. And I don't have any other application running that is using the camera, so I don't understand this at all. Let me cycle back through those again and see if I can get it to come back. No, Skype is off. Discord is off. Zoom is off. Everything that should be using the camera is off. So this is very strange. Kevin says, may have to restart OBS. Will that kill the stream if I do that, Kevin? Or will it not? I don't know. I've not done that before during a stream. Let me know, Kevin, if you think that it's going to kill the stream. Okay, I'll have to restart. Okay. That's a pain in the butt. Okay, folks, hang tight. I'm going to see if I can fix this, and I'll be back. Don't go anywhere. All right, you should now see me. Kevin, that solution worked. There we go. All I had to do was restart OBS. So for some reason, OBS was not grabbing the camera. I don't know why. But anyway, we're here. Hooray! Okay, that's a first. I know I was using Discord earlier, and I know I had an experience where the camera just stopped working in Discord. And I discovered that the camera had become unplugged from its USB port, but I plugged it back in. It was nice and firmly slotted back in the USB port. So I don't know why it decided not to get grabbed by OBS just now. But anyway, we are back. Sorry about that. We've kind of wasted about 10 minutes of the show, which is disappointing and annoying and frustrating. So folks, I apologize profusely. Yeah, I'm really sorry, folks. We've got about 15 people in here, which is it's not very many. We normally have more than this. So hopefully folks have not gone off and they're not going to come back. So I hope I have not just pissed off a bunch of new people who would have ordinarily been happy to watch. So for the people that are here, thank you for coming. Welcome to Songwriting Simplified. Me, Jonny Lipsham, here at jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk in Scotland, United Kingdom, capital of the world, and everything else. So, yeah, tech is unpredictable. It absolutely is. It's a bit of a pain in the butt, but it is what it is. We're just relying on technology to make this all happen, and we just expect technology to always be working. And when it isn't, and it's usually at a crucial moment that it's not doing its thing. So, but there we go. That's it. So, all right. So let's get into the show. After all of that, and of course that has messed up the entire chat as well, because now the entire chat is completely out of order. So I don't know who was first in the door. I can't not, you know, I normally do all of that, but I can't even say that. But I think the first person in the door was Christopher Rachner, who is here. I think he is still here because he has a great, terrific question, which we are going to get to. And we got Billy Morgan here, and we got Rich Cresswell here, and we got Dave from Bops NY here. He says, busy day, need something to help me sleep, just messing. Are you now? You're just messing, are you? I'm messing too. I'm glad you're here, Dave. Let's see who else is here. We have got Just Bob is here as well. And John Hawk is here. Bobby Booth is here. Kevin, who has helped me fix that problem, thank you very much, Kevin, is here as well. And we have Mike Johnson, and we've got Keith from Radio Tuck Frumpet, we've got Dwayne, and we've got Don Oliver, and we have Brett Marler, and we have, who else do we have? I'm having to scroll down here a wee bit. We've got Peter Brooks, and we also have Kyle Traduziak is here as well. Awesome. So we've got a full house of moderators pretty much, which is cool. All right, so let's get into this. So the last few weeks with Songwriting Simplified, we've been talking about chords and harmony and voicings of chords and things like that. So I did say at the end of last week's show that we would start talking about melody and melody writing and how to make melody writing easy for those who really struggle with it. And I know that there are folks out there that do struggle with melody writing, because melody writing can be a little bit abstract, and the thing you want to avoid with melody writing, not melodyne, but with melody writing, is making it meander. And so on and so forth. You know, you don't want it to do that. You don't want it to go. That's not really going to excite anybody or get them to listen. You need to create phrases, and this is the key to melody. So phrases, that's key number one. Key number two is repetition. Everybody loves repetition. Everybody loves to hear the same thing again and again and again, because it gets the melody into the brain. So the more you find a good phrase and you repeat it, the more your listener is going to latch onto that melody and they're going to sing it. And especially if you've got a good set of words that are very memorable, they're going to latch onto that as well. So good little phrase that you repeat quite a bit with some good lyrics to go with it. That is the secret sauce to making melody work. So how do we create phrases? Well, the first thing you've got to do is you've got to break down the whole thing of melody writing from something abstract into something simple and into bite-sized chunks that you can deal with easily. So the first thing I advise people is use simple scales or a simple set of notes. So what are the simplest scales you can use? A pentatonic scale. What is a pentatonic scale? It's a 5-note scale. And we number notes in a scale as 1 to 7. And of course, the octave above. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and octave. So a 5-note pentatonic scale would consist of 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. And you'll find melodies by composers like Dvorak and Debussy and Ravel and people like that. Really, really great melody writers who make melody, and Holst as well. They use pentatonic scales quite a lot. That's an example of a really simple melody that uses just 5 notes. And that's the beginning of a piece. It's actually a section of a piece called The New World Symphony by Anton Dvorak. And that is like one of the really crucial melodies which he then goes on to develop. So he takes this idea of going 3, 5, 5, 3, 2, 1. That's the first part of the phrase. All right, so this is what you would call a question. And then it has an answer. Okay, and that does not resolve to the tonic. It finishes on the 2nd degree of the scale. And then you repeat that. Repetition is good. And then you answer it again, but this time with a conclusion. Okay, and then you have the next phrase, new phrase. Repeat that. And then go back to your first phrase. Hang on, what's the next bit go? and then repeat that bit. Whoops. And that's it. That's essentially the melody. I'm going to give you another example of a melody that really works. And now I may well get a copyright strike for this show, so please bear that in mind. This show might get taken down. So another example of a really good melody is Somewhere Over the Rainbow. There's a lot of good reasons why it's a good melody. So what does this have? First thing it has is an octave leap. Then we leap back down again. And then we have another leap. So it's a couple of really good examples of good melody writing. Now, the first one was a pentatonic scale that occasionally made use of this B here, but for the most part it was the pentatonic scale. Whereas this one uses the entire C major scale. Okay, and then you get the next part of the song. So this goes back to not only melody, but form as well. And I think we've kind of talked about form a little bit. And once we've finished this couple of shows on melody, then we're going to get into form. And we will kind of tie the two together. We will revisit melody a little bit, and we'll bring in some form and structure, because it's really, really important as to how to make a good song work. Now, you can use, the common song form: verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus, 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 out. That's a fairly common song form. Now, something like Somewhere Over the Rainbow doesn't follow that. It is built around a form which we call AABA. So, what does that entail? What is AABA? This is it is related. This is form a little bit, but it's related to melody as well. So this is section A. Repeat that. So you get section A again, and so on and so forth. And then when you get to the end of that, you then get the next part of the melody. This is section B. And so you go through that whole section, and then you get back to the Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and that is section A. So you've got A repeated, B, A. So I recommend the first thing you do is you decide upon the form of your song to start with. Lyrics are good, having a good idea for some chord changes, all that is great and all that is good. And you can start from any of those points. But if you've got a good form, then you can literally just chart this all out on paper. And you can then go, okay, so my A section is 16 bars long, my repeat of my or it's 8 bars long, let's say it's 8 bars. So you got A, and then A repeated, that's 16. Then your B section is another 8, and then you're repeating the A section again. So you're actually only creating 2 pieces of melody, an A section and a B section. The B section contrasts with the A section. So for this, you could go to the relative minor. So if you're in major, so in C major, for example, and then you could use this E over G sharp to get to the B section in A minor, which is the relative minor of C major. And then that takes you back to C major for your A section. So break your whole melody writing down. So let's start with the A section. How can we break that down? Well, we can use that whole idea of a question and an answer phrase. So let's say our A section is 8 bars long. Let's break that down into 2 phrases of 4 bars each. So let's break that down even further. And let's say that we're going to have a question and an answer, and each one is 2 bars long. Okay, so we'll have phrase A, answer, which will be B, then phrase A again, and a concluding answer, so a different answer. So you got A, B, A, and then conclusion. So we'll call that C. And that concludes your A section. And then you repeat that. And so we're making this simple. So let's say the question is always going to go up at the end of the phrase, and the answer is always going to go down back to the tonic. So if you're in C major, that will be C. That's the tonic for C major. Okay? So all you're talking about is 1 2-bar phrase that goes up at the end of that. So it could be, you know, let's say, and that's your question answer. So then you could answer that by borrowing a little bit. Okay, so and then you repeat that. And that concludes your entire A section, all right? So then you can repeat your entire A section if you want, or you might want to go straight on into section B. And that's a different song form. If you're going to not repeat that first section, that A section, and go straight into section B, then bring back your A section at the end. And what you'll have is an ABA form, not AABA, but ABA. And this is what we call a ternary form. All right, so then your B section will be in a different key, maybe temporarily, a related key like A minor. So here you could borrow the same kind of phrase idea, but shift it down to A. And then go back. So now we've got A, we've got B, and we've got A. We've got ourselves a form. And we've got ourselves 2 little phrases that make sense, that are simple and easy for anybody to remember. And they've got a little bit of syncopation, so that the rhythm is interesting. And they've got a phrase going up, and then an answering phrase going down. Another phrase going up, answering phrase going down. Follow that same idea through in section B, phrase going up, phrase going down, phrase going up, phrase going down. Repeat your A section. But this time, when you get to the end of your A section, you've got to make it very, very clear that it is the conclusion of your section. So this time, instead of going, maybe go up to the octave above. So maybe do, and then that completes your entire melody. So basically what you're doing is you're taking something abstract, melody, and you're going, okay, what does melody consist of? What are the key ingredients? Question, answer. Question phrase, answer phrase. How long should those be? Make it 2 bars long each. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Make it economical. So you're using 1 phrase, 2 phrases, a 3rd phrase, a 4th phrase. This is all you need. 4 little 2-bar phrases to complete your melody writing. Now, this works if you're working in a song form like AABA or verse, chorus. But if you're doing something much more expansive, like a symphonic work, or a suite or something like that. I know Rich Cresswell, my good friend and composer Rich Cresswell, he writes much larger works quite often. And so he will be dealing with much larger forms. But again, even with a really large scale form like a symphony, break it down into small bits that the listener can really get their heads around. So, for example, Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, da 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 da, and that's it. Those are the 2 phrases. In fact, it's just 1 phrase that's then transposed, and it's just that. It's just 2 notes shifted down in pitch. It's 1 phrase transposed, and out of that he develops an entire first movement for that symphony. And in fact, that phrase keeps coming up in the other movements of the symphony, culminating in all of the ideas and developments of those ideas coming back in the final movement. And so this is how you work, whether you're writing a large-scale work or a simple song or a TV theme. I mean, the kind of thing that I was talking about here and I just made up on the spot, that would work for a TV theme. TV themes need to be catchy. They need to have a really, really strong, simple, strident melody that will clearly identify with your show or the show that you're writing the melody for. You're writing the music for. Which is why they are called TV themes. It is a theme. It is a concept, a musical concept. And so that's what you want to do. You want to break it down into simple building blocks that are strong and easy to latch onto. And so this is what you do when you're writing a simple theme, or if you're writing a song that you want to, that you want lots and lots of people to listen to. This is what songwriters like Ed Sheeran do. Ed Sheeran's melodies are really simple, but they are incredibly effective. And evocative. If he's going to the relative minor, or another minor key, it's because the lyrics are instructing him to do so. So, for as much as I've talked about melody writing on its own, outside of the context of lyric writing, the 2 should be married to each other. So, your melody should be informed by the content of your lyrics. So if your lyrics are dark and sad, you can go with that, and you can write in the minor key, and you can emphasize minor thirds or a descending. That really emphasizes that you're in a minor key. For example, the Imperial March, really emphasizes that you're in a minor key. It's a minor arpeggio. It's a minor chord arpeggio. And that's phrase A. That's your question. And that's your answer. It's brilliant. John Williams is one of the great melody writers. And again, it's simple. I mean, it starts with that repeated note, and it's the tonic. And that's the first phrase. And so he's used that arpeggio again to finish the phrase. And it's brilliant. And then the next phrase is really quite chromatic, which he then extends downwards, and then he gets back to that little finishing cadence. And that's how that little Imperial March thing works. And then he's got that rhythmic figure as an interlude. Dun, 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 dun. And then the melody comes back in again. So really, really effective melody writing. So I hope all of that helps you guys a lot. So that's a brief setup for beginning to write melody, breaking it down into simple little chunks, little 2-bar phrases, a question, an answer, a question, an answer, or question, answer, question, conclusion. That's your A section. B section, new question, new answer, new related question, new conclusion. That's your B section. Bring your A section back. Now, when you bring your A section back, there's a couple of options you've got. One, you can make it a straight repeat of your A section. Or you could invert the questions. Literally turn the phrase upside down. So, if the phrase of the question does that, for example, you can invert that. And wherever it goes up, you go down, and wherever it goes down, you go up. So look at how that melody works. And turn it upside down. Okay, so, or you can do it backwards. Start with the last note and play and work forward to the first note. That's another way of creating a little variation. So you can do that quite legitimately on the last time that you repeat your A section. So it's still using the A section, but it's just kind of developed a little bit. And then, of course, if this is a much larger work, you need an entire new section. So everything can be made of little AABAs. So your little 2-bar phrases, that's a little A, little B, little A, little B. And that's your A section. That's your mini A section. And this could be in a much larger work. So you could have like a 64-bar A section that is made up of little A's and little B's all over the place. And then, mini A's, mini B's that are containing little A's and little B's, little A's and little B's. And then you take all of those ideas and you go, you know what? I'm going to extend some of those by adding some notes to those, or I'm going to flip them upside down and use that to build big B. And this is how symphonic works are developed, by the way. So this is how Beethoven would have developed the Fifth Symphony. He would have taken that da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, and then he would have developed those and extended those ideas, then repeated them, and then all of that would have been one giant section A. And in symphonic form, we call that the exposition. You are setting out the ideas. You're setting out you're giving the listener, these are the headlines that we are going to talk about in this work, in this movement. And then you develop those ideas, you unpack those ideas, you expand those ideas. That's called the development. And then you get the recapitulation. What is that? That's a fancy word of saying, play it again, Sam. We're going to recap everything we've just talked about and draw them all to a conclusion. So A section is introducing the ideas. B section so A section being the exposition, B section being the development, and then A again being the recapitulation. So the A section, headline your ideas, state your thematic ideas. B, develop those ideas, add to them, change them, move them around in pitch, change key, go through a series of different key changes if you want, and then come back and draw those ideas to a conclusion and end your movement. So That's how a larger symphonic work would work. But everything has a question answer, question answer, question answer. Develop those ideas. New question or extended question A, extended answer B, and so on and so forth. So you can make it quite complicated by having lots of little phrases, but then you develop those ideas and you can extend them, you can make them longer, you can make them shorter, you can turn them upside down, you can play them backwards, you can do whatever you want to those ideas to develop them. But you're making it easy for yourself because you're only creating these ideas once and then you're only performing them in different ways. But it's the same ideas, it's the same concepts, it's the same notes. You're just moving them around a bit. And so you make the writing easy on yourself because your B section is not new material. It's the old material expanded. It's the A section material expanded. And then the recap basically goes, let's make sure the listener has not forgotten those initial ideas. And then we're going to chuck in a whole bunch of musical fireworks where we really test the performing capabilities of our musicians, and we're going to chuck in some long chromatic runs or some very fast runs in amongst these thematic ideas again. And that's how you do it. That's how you write a symphonic work. Sounds easy, and actually it is. It is easy. Melody writing, whether you're writing a symphony or whether you're writing a simple guitar and vocal country ballad, the same thing is applied. The same ideas, the same concepts are applied. So I hope that has all helped you. All right, let's go back and look at the questions, because we do actually have a good one from Christopher. And he emailed this to me as well as putting it in the chat here. So let's get to that question. He says, would you be willing to discuss the uses for prelude, interlude, and postlude? How about a short example of how you would put them into use, and why would or could they be useful? Really great question. Preludes are really, really good. And you find these a lot in works of the Baroque period. For example, we go back to J.S. Bach, the Preludes and Fugues. And he wrote 48 of them to celebrate the birth of equal temperament and the birth of the major minor tonic dominant key system. And so he wrote 48 preludes and fugues. So what is the prelude? The prelude hints at what is yet to come. So he has ideas which he is going to put into the fugue. Fugue is a contrapuntal form where you've got several kind of melodies going at the same time. And believe it or not, the human ear and the brain is capable of listening to multiple melodies at the same time and understanding each one of them and totally getting it, which is why Baroque music was very contrapuntal, and they had this form called fugue, which was kind of like the pinnacle of this contrapuntal idea. Contrapuntal meaning counterpoint, meaning having a melody and a counterpoint to that melody going at the same time. So two melodies going at once, maybe three or maybe even four melodies going on at once. There's a really good video that I found the other week, which I'm going to post in the HST songwriting group, and I will post it in Music to Motion and a few other groups, where the guy, I think it's a guy who wrote a fugue with lyrics. And the cool thing about this fugue is the lyrics actually describe what is happening in the fugue. So it teaches you about fugue by writing a fugue. It's very, very cool. It's very, very clever. And the lyrics tell you exactly what's going on. So, you know, when you've got different elements and different aspects of the fugue going on that you need to learn and pay attention to, basically the lyrics of this fugue tell you what is going on. It's very descriptive. It's very smart. So I will find that again, and I will post that in all the groups that I can think of that you guys will be able to get access to it, because it's very useful. Even if you're not into fugue, it will teach you about clever, really intricate and clever music writing. So the prelude. The prelude is basically like the prologue that you would have in a TV show or a film, where you basically set the scene, you establish the characters, you establish the players, you establish where things are, where people are, and who the people are that are going to appear in the main body of the show. So you get that if you go back to 1960s Batman TV shows. You would always have a prologue, and then you'd have an epilogue at the end. So the prologue basically goes, we've got this person, we've got this situation, and it basically just sets the scene. So that's what a prelude does. A prelude takes the initial melodic ideas and sets them out and says, hey, listener, this is my theme, and spells it out. And certainly in the Baroque period, this was done in free rhythm. So there was no sense of time. It was in free time. In what we would call recitative, which is a style that kind of is early Baroque, maybe late medieval, going into the Baroque period, of basically setting out the bare facts of the story with just suspended chords, or sustained chords, I should say. So instead of having actual chord rhythms, you just have... And so the singer in that form would be able to sing a lot of the telling of the story in free rhythm. And sometimes, rather than actually having a set of chord changes like this, like I just played just then, it would be over like a suspended chord. And then it might go to the dominant. With the free melody going over the top. And then you would get into actual tempo. And that would be your A section, and then the retelling of that. So that is what a prelude is. A prelude sets out the bare bones of the main ideas of what is then going to be set to tempo, to chord changes. And it's in free rhythm mostly. So you can do that with your own songs. This whole idea was then kind of developed quite a bit. So by the time you get to the late 19-teens, early 1920s, you get refrains. And a refrain, essentially, again, it is setting the scene for the main body of the story, the main setting up for the verse of the song. So you'll find that there are lots of songs that you only know the main part of, and you don't realize that there is actually a refrain that starts it. So when you hear it, you go, hang on, what is all this? this isn't My Funny Valentine. This is, what? And then about 20 or 30 seconds later, then you get into, you know, the main body of it, you know. And then you're into the full body of My Funny Valentine, but there's a whole bunch of melody that comes before that, and that's called the refrain. That sets the scene for My Funny Valentine and the whole rest of the song. So that's what the prelude is. That's what a refrain is. You can definitely use that in your own songs if you want to be able to kind of set the scene ready for the listener then to be taken into the story. So you're basically saying, here is Farmer Giles, here's Farmer Giles's wife, and here's his attractive neighbor next door, who Farmer Giles kind of likes the look of, but he's been married to Mrs. Giles for 50 years. And all of that. So that's basically setting out the story. And then you get into the story of, okay, so how did they kind of first meet? How did, you know, Farmer and Mrs. Giles first meet? And, you know, how did this relationship develop? And then you later on introduce the next door neighbor, who Farmer Giles kind of likes the look of a wee bit. And so you then bring that in later down the line in the story. But you've already set them out in the prelude. They're there. So that's what a prelude is. Interlude. Interlude gets used a lot in popular music. The Beatles used that kind of idea quite a bit, where you'd have the verse, then you'd have the chorus, and then between the chorus and the next verse, you'd have a short piece of instrumental music. And the short piece of instrumental music might actually be the same music as the intro to the song. So, and Steely Dan did this quite famously with the title song of the album Asia. So they go through verse, and then they go chorus, and then that intro kind of idea comes back again, and then they go into the next verse. But they also have a second interlude, which sets up another piece of melody, which is played by marimbas, which again sets up the guitar solo and the guitar solo, the first guitar solo in Asia. And then you get into the next section, which is the tenor sax feature for Wayne Shorter, accompanied by Steve Gadd on drums. So that idea is already prevalent in popular music. It's not really used so much these days. In the 21st century, you don't really get that idea at all of a prelude and an interlude. But interludes do get used a little bit. Maybe a short little 4-bar piece of melody that kind of glues the end of the chorus to the beginning of the next verse. So that's where an interlude is handy. And what's the last thing that he talks about here? Postlude, or the epilogue, is your conclusions. Drawing the ideas that you have stated in your prelude, in the main body of your song, drawing all of those things together into the conclusion. So, okay, Farmer Giles found the neighbor really quite attractive, but he didn't do anything about it because he is very, very committed and passionately, still after 50 years of marriage, still passionately in love with Mrs. Giles. So he kind of was a little bit flirtatious with the neighbor. We found that out through the song. But he didn't really allow it to go any further. And actually, the whole experience really actually helped strengthen his marriage to Mrs. Giles. Even though Mrs. Giles had been a little bit concerned, a little bit nervous that the next door neighbor might be gaining the affections of her husband, but that doesn't happen. So that's what your postlude is. That's what your epilogue is. You're basically saying, all of this happened, we got to the end, and, you know, your epilogue is, and everybody lived happily ever after. And actually, you know, their next door neighbor just became a really good friend and practically became part of their family, or something like that. That's what the postlude would be. Great question. Love it. And you can do that in any genre, by the way. All right, let's go see if there are other questions that I really don't want to miss. Just Bob said, is there a way to set up MIDI to only write notes in a scale in the editor? How is this done and how can you use it effectively in a project? Yes, there is absolutely a way you can do that. That really is a Sunday question. We're kind of a little bit out of time, but I'll tell you what, Bob, email that question to me and we will start Sunday Night Live with that question because I can definitely show you how to do that. Brett says, would it be fair to say that a blend of intervallic leaps and stepwise motion is key to a good melody? It would definitely be fair to say that. Absolutely. I mean, you can see that from the New World Symphony melody, you know. So you've got a little leap here. But you also get that in Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Big leap of an octave. Another leap of a major sixth. And then we go down again. So we've gone from there. We go down a seventh, and then we go up a sixth, stepwise. So there's lots of leaps there. There's an octave, there's a major sixth, there's a seventh, then there's a sixth, and then there's lots of stepwise motion. So yes, so leaps and stepwise motion, which is like next door neighbor notes. Having that contrast is going to help you write a really strong melody. So the strongest leap you can have is that octave leap. And then the next one is that major sixth leap. Those leaps are really strong leaps. And they make the contrast really nicely between that and the stepwise motion. What I love about this is it follows the lyrics. Somewhere over the rainbow. That octave leap is kind of optimistic. But then as the melody starts to descend, the leap gets smaller as, you know, that optimism kind of runs out a little bit and objective reality sets in the lyrics. So, and it concludes back down on this note, but it goes quite low. It goes the range of the melody is from there to there, so it's kind of like a tenth. It's an octave and a minor third, a flatted tenth. So that's the range of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Quite large, actually, by comparison with most contemporary songs. Most contemporary songs have a range of about a fifth or a sixth. That's probably about as far as most pop songs will go. Why that is, I don't know. And there are some pop songs that'll never venture out much from those three notes. Or you can actually legitimately write a melody that just has 1, 2, and 3. It's not going to be very inspiring or very interesting, and you're not going to have a whole lot of variations that you can do with it, but you can do it. But yes, stepwise motion contrasted with large leaps will make your melodies really, really outstanding and interesting. Good question. Let's see, next one. Bob's gonna email me. Awesome. Chris says, you are so good, you should charge admission. Yeah, maybe I should, but I won't. I will never charge for this information. I'll never charge for this, because I think, you know, this that I do here, I do because I want to see a whole generation of great composers, arrangers, melody writers, lyricists, songsmiths. I want to see a whole generation come up. on into the future, on into, you know, the next decade, on into the next 20 years, having learned stuff from me, from what I've learned over the last 40 years. I mean, I've been writing songs since I was about 10 years old, I think. I was either 9 or 10. So, you know, I've been doing this for nearly 40 years. And so I've learned quite a bit along the way. And some of it I've learned self-taught. Some of it I've learned from listening very carefully to good songs and good songwriters and good arrangers and good composers. And just paying attention to the details of what their music is. So, you know, a lot of people, when they listen to an orchestral work, when they listen to something like a symphonic work, maybe something by Tchaikovsky or something like that, or Mahler, they will listen to the drama of the work, and they will listen to the orchestration of the work. They'll listen to the brass, they'll listen to the woodwinds and the strings and the percussion, and all of those things kind of contrasting with each other. You know, the broad spectrum of call and response between these different sections. And that's what most people listen to when they listen to music. They listen to those elements. But they listen to melody. They get melody. They get the big picture, broad colors, but they also get melody. Melody is really, really important. Because melody is going to be the difference. A good melody is going to be the difference between a work that sounds great and a work that sounds average. So if melody writing is your weakness, I'm hopeful that over the next, 2 or 3 Wednesday Songwriting Simplifieds, we're going to cover, I'm going to give you a whole bunch of tools that you can use. I've already given you some already, and I've touched upon others that we're going to develop over the next couple of weeks. So I've talked about variations and ideas like that. How you can take your little A section, your little B section, how you can develop those, and you can extend them by adding notes. I've talked about those in brief, but over the next couple of weeks, we're going to dive into the details. We're actually going to do them. We're actually going to do things like inversion. We're actually going to do things like retrograde, which is playing it backwards. And then we'll also look at retrograde inversion, playing it upside down and backwards. And we'll look at transposing, taking an idea and shifting it about in pitch. Doesn't necessarily mean you change key, but you move it around in the key that you're in. And the differences that can create, and, kind of the natural variations that will create. So if melody is your weakness, folks, then the next several shows are going to deal with that and give you some good tools for doing that. We've talked about lyrics a lot. We talked about chord changes a lot. So melody, I think, is an important thing. And then we'll look at form and structure. And then the next thing after looking at form and structure, we're going to take a deep dive into orchestration. And that doesn't necessarily mean writing an orchestral work. It just means the instruments that you're going to use in your piece and how to get the best out of them, and how to get, contrasts between those different instruments, and how to get the best use out of those, so that you're not kind of one-dimensional. So that's going to be the grand scheme of things over the next several weeks and the next several months of this show. I'm kind of developing this show now that I'm running it by myself. I'm developing this show into something that's going to be a little bit more deep educational, that's going to help you guys acquire new tools for becoming really good songwriters and breaking complex ideas like a symphonic work, breaking them down into their bare bones constituent parts that you can take and you can apply to your own works. That's what we're going to do with Songwriting Simplified going forward. Let's see. Not many contemporary pop singers have the range of Judy Garland. That is very true. And she was an alto, generally speaking. But she could extend her register up a wee bit as well. All right, so I think we have pretty much come to the end of the show, because there are no more questions. Keith, that's funny. He says, Learn bagpipes to play Kenny G at Johnny's birthday. Yeah, we're not doing that. Mike says, Billy, launch your after show Zoom. I'm about to head out for a while. Okay, cool. So there is going to be an after show Zoom for those that want to come along. I think that would be something that you guys, and we can carry on the discussion if you like. Or you can talk about, you know, what you got out of the show, or, you know, what you're going to do with what you've got out of this show. Those after shows are really, really good over on either Billy's Zoom or Mike's Zoom, where you guys can just carry on talking. Because I think the idea of community is really, really important. So I want to be a part of helping you guys get to know each other and either start working with each other or start learning from each other and start challenging each other to apply the things that you learn either here on Songwriting Simplified or on Sunday Night Live, when we're talking about mixing and we're talking about mastering and we're talking about using the tools that are available in Studio One. And as I said, I'm going to start sprinkling in a little bit of Notion here and there as well. So you don't have to be a notation expert. I'm not expecting you to be. But notation is useful, especially if you want to involve other musicians and get them playing your melody parts or your accompanying parts or whatever it might be. All right, so I think we are there at the end. Chris cannot make the after show, but that's okay. Not a problem. He says, sorry, but health reasons dictate I get to bed and rest. I don't blame you. I am still having problems with my leg. I may have to go back to the doctors and get a review and see what can be done about that. So that might involve me taking some time off, but we'll see. But we will always, as always, we will improvise, because that's what I do. I'm a jazz guy. I improvise. So, if that means, you know, the plan that I've just laid out for for pretty much the rest of this year for Songwriting Simplified, if it has to be kind of pushed back a little bit, it will be pushed back a little bit, because health is more important than anything else at the moment. So, all right, folks, I will see you all on Sunday for Sunday Night Live. If you've got questions about using Studio One, or you've got questions about mixing and mastering and all of that stuff, then get those into me. You can either email me down the bottom there, jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk, and I can take your questions that way, because that way you're not limited by the 200 characters that you're limited by in the live chat. Or you can just put them in the chat, but you will have to kind of make them nice and short, you know, the 200 characters. So think carefully about how you're going to edit those questions down into the bare bones for the chat. But otherwise, folks, I will see you all very soon on Sunday for Sunday Night Live. Take care. Have a great few days. Good night, everybody.
Bye.